I think it's pretty fair to say that DELTARUNE and Undertale are good games. Some may disagree, but they're wrong. DELTARUNE and Undertale have pretty much made their mark on both gaming and the internet as a whole. Like, everybody knows Sans, but I want to talk about an interesting trend with the DELTARUNE community specifically, like the ones that are pretty heavily involved in the game. I'm gonna call it DELTARUNE hysteria, more specifically DELTARUNE hysteria within the community and specific theories, but I can't put that fully in the title because it sucks. So yeah, let's just get started with. Alright, some theories in this community just happen to get popular because they sound funny, and usually they are. Let's look at Greenster theory. The theory says that Gaster is green. So let's look at the evidence. Gaster is green because of Luigi tweets. Gaster is green because these areas are green. Gaster is green because Papyrus is red and Sans is blue, and in Snowden there's this green triangle. Gaster is green because Gaster is green because Ralsei is green, right? Yeah, that. Green Gaster theory, or Greenster theory as I like to call it, is also usually paired up with the Gaster is in between theory, and the evidence for this is even better. You see these two snowmen? There's a space between them. That could be Gaster. You see this snowman? The snowman is actually Gaster because the hallways are similar. This hallway pattern has never been used in Undertale before. You see the Sans and Papyrus rooms? The middle is green and in between. Okay, now I'm all for joke theories. I don't want to seem like a negative Nancy here. Friend inside me theory, which I'll talk about more later, and the friend inside me hysteria of the DELTARUNE pre-chapter 3 and 4 era was hilarious. But Greenster and Gaster's green and in between makes zero sense. By this I mean, other than it being a silly theory that Gaster happens to be the color green, there isn't really much that it's saying. Greenster theory reveals to us that Gaster, wait for it, is green. Cough. Like, it doesn't characterize Gaster, it doesn't say anything about the game's themes, and it doesn't even predict anything about the future of DELTARUNE's plot elements like Friend Inside Me does. Also, Greenster theory is the complete result of confirmation bias and selection bias. We want to think Gaster is green because it's funny, so let's add in every instance of green in the game and just say this actually confirms Gaster. It is green, right? Really, all the evidence is just coincidence, and to quote the Vsauce video, spooky coincidences?
Confirmation bias also comes into play here. If you really want two things to sync up, they will. We often look for evidence that supports what we already believe while marginalizing things against it. The product of selection bias, confirmation bias, and the law of near enough, a behavior of our pattern-sensitive minds. Two things don't have to line up exactly or literally for us to see a connection. This is why vague predictions are a great way to look psychic. Given the vast amount of details in any one of our lives, it's pretty easy. This quirk can be exploited to almost comedic heights when it comes to overanalyzing.
Like the DELTARUNE chapter 3 door rooms, and the middle one is green because Gaster is green, right? But when you enter those rooms, they don't really represent anything. Sure, the middle green door has the mysterious gumball machine that can take you to Dessa's weird world, but if we're following the same line of logic, does Sans relate to water coolers, or does Papyrus relate to these minigames? They don't. Legitimately, the 6-7 theory is better than Greenster because it says something about completeness and incompleteness and the game's future plot points. At the very least, it's trying to solve and create some lore. Gaster is green and in between reveals something completely irrelevant, and Gaster being in a mysterious realm that's in between realities is something we have known since the Gaster followers have existed. Being somewhere in between is just another way of saying shattered across space and time. Let me be clear here, if you like Greenster theory because you know it's silly and it's funny and you know it reveals Gaster's green, I don't hate you. It's just that I'm I think why people give so much validity to Greenster is that it's usually paired up with two completely different theories. The Gaster is green, Gaster is in between, and 6-7 theory are all grouped together just cause they're funny, and they are. The 6-7 theory, I think with the hex codes where Gaster's room has 166 as its color and Man Country's mysterious binocular room having 167 as its color, is the only thing with merit here among these three ideas. When people with Greenster try to assign meaning with the color green, it all falls apart either because there's so many conflicting meanings, like is it kindness or being forgotten or freedom or control, or they forget that green itself can't be the only color with meaning. This is just a personal opinion and gripe of mine, but like, If one color is meant to represent something, I feel like there should be other colors to contrast that representation. Like, all the colors should represent something. Blues, pinks, reds, can you attach meanings to those? Probably not, because in my personal opinion, I don't think Toby Fox is pulling a Vince Gilligan Breaking Bad Better Call Saul and assigning intricate meanings to different colors. Numbers, yes. Colors, no. Again, that's personal, okay? But wait, isn't the point of this video like DELTARUNE hysteria? Why do I keep talking about this? Well, a lot of you may be seeing this and saying, this is a joke theory, nobody would actually take it seriously.
Pop off, Greenstone. Disrespect, Greenstone.
I didn't know Greenster had shooters, jeez. I don't even remember talking about Greenster negatively. I think I made like a one offhand joke in this video. Again, if we're talking about Greenster, Gaster in between, and the 6-7 theory, and if we're taking them seriously, I think one of those theories has some merit. And if you have Greenster as an interpretation, I don't mind. I just think differently and I'm bringing my arguments why, you know, I'm discussing. I just personally think it's really silly. Another thing that I genuinely think has meaning but a lot of people misinterpret is the line, copies are monochrome. Apparently this line applies to everything in DELTARUNE when it doesn't. With this section of the video, I really want to emphasize how in DELTARUNE hysteria, joke theories can lead to people taking stuff way too seriously and forgetting that these are actually bad theories that don't consider the game's themes. Joke theories, when too much people take them seriously, like actually like hop off green, that can also lead to people not looking into DELTARUNE analysis and theory crafting further and refusing to take any other interpretation because the joke theory is the popular one. It's the same issue the FNAF community had, where game theories, FNAF theories were considered the only acceptable theories and story for FNAF by a general audience when it really wasn't. Like, do you guys remember Game Theory's Petscop videos? Holy shit. What is this? Who is this? Basically, remember if a theory sounds silly, consider if the evidence is biased, selection bias, confirmation bias, etc., and if the theory aligns with DELTARUNE's themes and characterizations. That last part especially, a lot of silly theories just completely ignore how characters act just to be able to fit the title of their crazy theory that's borderlining on fanfiction. I want to talk about Friend Inside Me because that is a quote-unquote joke theory that I legitimately thought was brilliant because it aligned with the game's themes, and it was funny. It has a funny origin with Toby Fox's You've Got a Friend in Me remix, and though the evidence was minimal, Greenster and 6-7 theory also have very minimal evidence when you take away all the bias, the evidence was still very related to the game's themes, with like the cowboy and western genre being forgotten. And if we isolate that select part of the theory, it was kinda right with predicting how Tenna acts with the fear of being forgotten and the want to be wanted, like Static by Flavor Folly. After all, I want to be wanted. Is that so wrong? But yeah, Friend Inside Me. I love Friend Inside Me theory, alright? Joke theories can be good, and I feel like some people are gonna say, so you like when joke theories are less of jokes and have more merit, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that with joke theories, especially if you have a larger following, a lot of people are gonna take what you say very seriously, so you should make it make a little bit of sense, just a little bit. Like even with Friend Inside Me, one of my friends before chapter 3 and 4 release was super hyped up for Friend Inside Me to be in game and was disappointed when it didn't end up happening. That's a real story that happened to me, by the way, and that's why I question Greenster so much, because with it being so popular, I don't want a random person who wholeheartedly believes in Greenster and only Greenster to be sad when Gaster ends up f***ing purple. I feel like we got a bit out of subject, out of focus with that one. Tell me in the comments if you think that's a good or bad thing. I'm really trying to take in feedback because while I hashtag believe in myself to make great long form videos, in fact I'm pretty proud of myself personally for some of my videos already, I want to know what you guys want so I can have a good balance in these. Anyhow, Pluey. Now the DELTARUNE hysteria over Pluey I think says a lot about what the DELTARUNE community values, and it's both a good and bad thing in my opinion. The DELTARUNE community loves very small, very minuscule, and very mysterious details and believe that solving one thing can solve the whole ass game. However, this level of overanalysis is great because being detail-oriented and seeing the smaller stuff isn't really as noticed and as popularized in other communities. Like, more non-Undertale fans probably know about the existence of Gaster compared to Alphys, just by the sheer fact the community analyzes him so much. But anyhow, the bad part here comes when the DELTARUNE community kinda fails to see big picture stuff. Again, this is looping back to what I said about themes and analysis. Don't just watch theories involving lore. Understand what the game is trying to say first, and don't just go off of vibes. An analysis of aesthetic works cannot be based on vibes alone. Go watch watch my stuff, but also watch other UTDR content creators such as Stuffed Alpaca, Paul McGraw, Zach Taigai, GoldPro, and Karantu. These are just a few of many amazing content creators who have made stuff about Deltarune and Undertale, analyzing and theorizing in a way that's succinct, interesting, and unique. They're all such developed creators, so please go watch all of their stuff. They also just don't tend to hone in on a specific theory or mindset. They consider the whole entire game, even when they're talking about a theory that's very specific. Basically, when the fandom has hysteria over something like Pluey or copies or a monochrome, it's always really funny, especially at first, but an emerging problem can arrive when people start taking them at face value and either, like I said in the first part, take them a little too seriously or forget about the big picture elements of Deltarune as a whole. Like, I hate Gaster deniers, but I feel like this is how Gaster deniers are derived, by people who see Gaster theorists obsess over Gaster and ignore the game's themes, philosophical ideas, character dynamics, etc. Just overall undercut Undertale and Deltarune's cohesiveness as a full body of work. So just please consider that. Consider what the game's trying to say before predicting what the game's going to do. The fandom, and I'm talking about the more general fandom here, again, this may not be you, but I'm just saying a lot of people have issues with characters being good and characters being evil. This was a major problem in the earlier days of Deltarune, but I feel like the release of Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4 have kinda led to more people realizing that people just aren't good or evil. However, we still suffer from this issue in the community. First off, let's look at earlier examples. Ralsei. Now, I don't think people suffer from this issue as much now. I think a majority of people get that Ralsei is not an entirely evil character, especially after Chapter 4. Still, in the Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 era of the fandom, a lot of people thought Ralsei was evil because how can one be so nice naturally? How can someone have more information and secrets than us? How can someone travel between dark worlds, etc.? I do think it was reasonable to believe that Ralsei was hiding something, but the evil interpretation, I don't know, it never really stuck with me personally. Probably because I loved Ralsei's character and that his character arc, to the people who didn't hate him at that point, it was kinda easy to see that it was about self-acceptance, and I loved Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4 because it developed and executed on that idea so brilliantly. But anyway, a lot of people thought Ralsei was just plainly evil. I kinda have a suspicion that it has something to do with Sans being an overly silly character that ended up being overly serious in Undertale. I feel like Ralsei being an overly kind character led to people thinking a similar twist was going to happen, and that Toby Fox was going to do the exact same thing again because, you know, that's really genius. However, it clearly didn't. Toby Fox loves contrast. We've been knowing that, and I feel like Toby Fox with Ralsei is contrasting himself, is contrasting what he wrote. He doesn't do another Sans where the person's supposed personality is actually the exact opposite. He's having more nuance by showing that he can write Ralsei as a good character who's flawed and still hiding something and is not completely evil. Ralsei is genuinely a kind and caring person, but there are flaws to him, there are anxieties, there are motivations, some of which we still don't know entirely. And speaking of completely evil, Toby Fox has never ever written a character to be just completely evil. I think in Deltarune Chapter 1 and 2, a lot of people had unreasonable interpretations and theories regarding Ralsei's true nature. People that were simplifying Ralsei as explicitly good, kinda little cute boy, or
Evil f***ing character.
were just wrong. Like, I'm surprised that people just didn't consider, and I've said this in a previous video, that Ralsei could be a person who thought they were doing a good thing, but executing it in a way that was wrong. Or right, we don't know. Even Ralsei himself says there's so much to keep track of and remember in the prophecy that we don't know if what he thinks he's doing is right or wrong. Like we've seen in chapters 1 and 2 and chapters 3 and 4 that Ralsei's belief about lighteners, darkeners, and their dynamics together are questionable, but he believes them still due to a lack of self-worth and being overwhelmed by the prophecy. He could be thinking he's doing the right thing, but he's actually believing in the wrong thing. Essentially, there's layers to the characters, and what they believe is right. They have motivations. And in the modern day, we see that especially with Chris, and believers that Chris is just not a good person and is completely evil just because they're working with the Knight and Carol. Again, there are circumstances. There are motivations. We don't know if Chris, the Knight, or Carol are doing good things, bad things, or simply morally questionable things. There are gray areas. Carol could be doing a bad thing to save Des, or could be doing a good thing but in the sacrifice of Chris. There are always sacrifices and there are always motivations. Again, I'm not proposing what's right or wrong. You can think anything, but I am proposing that I think we should just think more. Don't simplify these characters as good or evil. Even characters like Toriel, who is one of the most complicated characters in Deltarune, is just overly simplified by people depending on the scene. The scene where she's patting Chris's head means she's good. The scene where she's dancing with Sans means she's bad. Like, No. Throughout Deltarune, we've seen Toriel as a character that has good intentions but executes her actions in a way that doesn't really fix anything. She loves Chris, but she's kind of been ignorant to deeper issues such as their lack of social communication with others, personal traumas Chris seems to still have, and their relationship with Asgore and their family as a whole. Family is one of the most major elements of Deltarune, and for people to simply blame Toriel or Asgore or Chris as the main source of problems are completely need to analyze and think about the game in a more nuanced way. I believe that with Deltarune and family, it's going to build up to messages regarding compatibility and communication issues. Though I believe Dessa's disappearance and whatever happened to Chris could be main points of contention, something tells me that Toriel's inability to communicate what's happening to her family members and Asgore's inability to accept how time and major events changes people were just some of the many elements that caused the Dreamer family to be incredibly disconnected from each other. You can even see this with Chris and their attachment issues to Asriel. I believe when Asriel is introduced, we're gonna be introduced to another major element of the family dynamic that's being communicated in Deltarune. There's also some stuff about the Chris player dynamic, but I've already talked about that in length in this video, so check that out if you want to. I've spent a lot of time talking about DELTARUNE hysteria and how it leads to a lack of nuance here. However, I want to appreciate how present the community is and the sheer beauty of it all. I've never really seen a fanbase think and value thinking this hard. In this Toby Fox interview, he mentions that sometimes people ascribe things he didn't intend. However, as he says, I feel like when they do that, that's what I wanted. I wanted to create something where people wouldn't know what was intended and what wasn't, and they could keep going deeper and think, whoa, this just keeps going deeper forever? So it's kind of validating when people do that. It's only bad when they read into it and they get something weird out of it. That's about it. I have the same take and hope that's the takeaway people get from this video. I don't think the Deltarune community is bad. In fact, I think they're actually more media literate than most popular fan bases, and I think their self-awareness, like with the joke about not being able to read text, is kinda evidence that they at least know they need to actually read and analyze stuff. Creator, developer, and artist Honkodoi made this thread about why Jackenstein is the knight, and there's all this complex talk of symbols and parallels and etc. It's a wild and pretty enjoyable read. Someone responded saying they were looking too deep into it and seeing things that weren't actually really there. Honkodoi responded with, I would rather live infinite lives seeing depth where there is nothing than live even a single life seeing nothing where there is depth. It is not bad that people interpret and analyze this game, and even stuff like Greenster, while I think it's stupid, there's nothing really bad about it. Like, how often do you see a community obsessed with something this small? My point is that I hope that the small details don't, kinda paraphrasing from this Geo article, undercut Deltarune and Undertale's cohesiveness as a work. Like, there is so much to this game. Don't just focus on the egg rooms, Gaster, or a small part of dialogue. You start getting into Marvel-y top 10 things you missed in whatever, who would ever make content about that, and that thinking process overall just kinda invalidates Undertale and Deltarune as art forms. What do I mean by this? Essentially, I'm paraphrasing this entire part from CJ the X's video. But basically, overanalysis and overinterpretation, even when I think it's stupid, even when you think it's stupid, is all kinda beautiful to see. I'm constantly enamored by the beauty of thoughts and the complexities that we both find from these games and manage to create ourselves. The Deltarune community interpreting so much in such a specific way where everything has meaning is great. They're showing how this world of meanings in Deltarune and the game itself are one and the same. They play the game and through their minds see all these visions. The game itself is quality, and they immediately perceive that while also just instinctively unfolding and unraveling and digging deeper into the intricacy of Deltarune's experience. Even if the game's intentions and definitions aren't explicitly what people say or believe, the fact that there's a joy in solving this puzzle at all is great. All I'm saying is we also need to feel this puzzle, to enjoy the game's essence and not how it relates to its status as a complex, deep game, but how it relates to us. After all, the world of meanings in Deltarune and the game itself are in the same world. Our world, our reality, as if there were any other reality. What I don't like about interpretations that think one small part solves Deltarune is that, like I said, it invalidates Undertale and Deltarune as an art form. It distracts from the thousands of lines of text and instead tries to find overly hidden meanings as if these meanings can somehow prove Deltarune and Undertale as legitimate complex pieces of art when they're already art. Instead of doing that, interpret Deltarune to enhance and pedestal Deltarune's experience, both the game and its community. Basically, don't say the plot and characters of Deltarune, which is brilliant enough already, is actually hiding some hidden meaning that legitimizes Deltarune as an aesthetic art form. It's such a useless appeal to a non-existent authority. Essentially, it's good when people experience Deltarune and know it's great, and I think what's even better is the community wanting more, wanting to connect to it through multiple pathways and develop an attachment to it. It's a real testament to the game, its complexities, its relatable experiences, and its writing. This is why Greenster is actually brilliant. Hello, so thanks for watching the full video. I just wanted to add in a quick announcement here. So, recent personal update in my life. My housing situation is kind of unstable right now. I don't want to share too much, but I may not be living in the place I've lived for years due to financial stuff. Anyway, I decided to make a Patreon. If you wanted to support me, the best way you could do that is by subscribing to one of the tiers, and here's what you'll get for each tier. For $3, you'll be a supporter. You'll get Patreon exclusive posts and your name in the credits in white. For $5, you'll be an onliner. You'll get those, but your name will be yellow and pink. For $10, you'll be an Elliator. You'll get what I said before, but your name will be red and I'll read it aloud in the credits of the video. You'll have access to poll voting for new long-form videos. You'll get access to cut content from these long-form videos because I cut out like paragraphs and a bunch of lines and takes in the script. And you'll be featured in the recommended character section in my videos. If you don't know what that is, Battle for Dream Island, this indie animated show, has this recommended character section where people could recommend their characters and they'd be featured in the show itself. So if you subscribe to this tier, you can have your profile, OC, or recommended character, whatever, drawn by me or my friends, and they'll appear in the background of the video alongside your username. It'll look kind of like the example on screen. For $25, you'll be a sponsor. You'll have everything I said previously, plus I will make your own song, max 3 minutes, with instructions by you given to me on how it should sound. I'll even make a motif for you. Imagine that, your own freedom motif. And just in case you didn't know, I can make music. In fact, the outro song you're hearing right now is made by me, and I've also made some custom music for these videos. And for $50, you'll be an Elliot Online executive producer, yes, or an EP. You'll get everything I mentioned previously, plus a special version of the recommended character section where you'll be featured more prominently. Like if you recommended, I don't know, like a fire character, I'll be burned by the fire in the video or something. Doesn't that sound great? But yeah, if you subscribe to any of these tiers, thank you very much. You have my overwhelming gratitude, and the support for this channel in general has honestly kept me going in the very, very rough past months. So yeah, thank you for your support, and thanks for watching.